especially like with Thresh's story, Thresh has the most details there, and all it was that he had a big old smile on his face while the ruination happened, and he's standing right there.
And he said to himself, "This is how it feels to chew 5 gum."
All right, well, that's it. Ryan's going to finish up this episode because I quit.
Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, episode 51. I am your host, Ryan, here with your other host, Hetch.
And we get to talk about a bunch of dead people. I see dead people.
You do see dead people. And this is an interesting episode because, like anything else, it may be one that tears us apart. But we'll get there. Because we always start with housekeeping. So up top, you can listen to us everywhere. If you're not following us on TikTok, if you happen to have it, follow us. We post some clips there from time to time. But Twitter is the place to be. That's the easiest way to keep up to date on episodes. That's at Podcast Core. That's Podcast COR. And then you can send an email to the same name at gmail.com. Leave a like, follow, short review / comment. Helps us get, discovered by newer folks. But you can also tell a friend to descend into despair and madness by listening to the Casuals of Runeterra podcast.
Is that actually a sales point? Like, is that what we're trying to do? Like,
there's some edgy listeners out there, man.
Descend into despair and madness. Like, what are we? Like the news?
Listen, we do it all for our Dark Lord.
For our Dark Lord.
This is just a median for us to like.
Cthulhu Fathagan. All right, so what you been playing?
Nothing. So listen, what is this, episode 3 of me not actually like playing the game yet since the release of the expansion? I'll get there. All right, there's plenty of time. There's like 17 days still left in the event. I'll get there, but in the meantime, we did discover something.
Yeah, so you're just living your best life. That's all I'm hearing.
Yeah, and it's Final Fantasy's fault. Listen, okay, so enough excuses. What we did find out, and what Hetch pointed out to me today, is our Lord and Savior, Giori Senpai. You may have heard us talk about him in the past. Just a random player that we're both obsessed with. Has posted some lists, because he's been playing some other card games in the meantime, but he retweeted some lists, and 2 of them catch my eye. One of them is disgusting. So we won't talk about that one. But the ones we will talk about.
What do you mean we won't talk about the disgusting one? Karma got buffed.
Oh, you stop it. Stop. So he posted a Zed Server update, which is related to the same one from the past that plays, the 3-1 on 2, plays the 4-3 that gives vulnerable. The same deck, just tweaked a little bit. With all the changes that have happened with a few cards. So that means, okay, there's a Silver Zed deck that's still viable. And then towards the end of the meta, before we got the new expansion, Sharvin started becoming a thing. And he did a little tweak on Sharvin that actually just adds a bit more top end, but nothing too crazy from the original list. So basically, I get to play what I was playing before in the current meta as it stands, which is exciting. And next time we talk, I'll have more details on how that turns out.
All right. Well, I'm not going to troll you too much because this past week I haven't played too much. And that is because it's been a fun video game week for me with my brother is a gigantic Pokemon fan. And
Pokemon Unite.
Pokemon Unite dropped. So
how was it?
It is very fun and very clearly made for people that are like at the age of 8.
Okay.
Or lower. So unlike every other time I've tried a game that is in that genre, in the MOBA genre, unlike every time I played that game, when you beat up on someone, it is like ingrained in you to call them a noob.
Oh no.
And in this one, because it's just everything is very clearly like, we made this for kids to have fun with this with this genre. So I will beat up on someone, and I like my instinct is immediately, oh no, you don't. Oh, you're like 6. I'm sorry. This can be fun. This can be fun. Double kill.
Double kill.
Yeah, and then outside of Pokemon Unite, a bunch of my friends are nerds, and they got me into Dungeons and Dragons. And so also with this week, it Magic the Gathering had a Dungeons and Dragons set.
Oh no, Hedge.
So yeah, I've had an eventful week that was not glued.
This is truly the end of the show. I know we usually kid about it, but I think this is it.
But my
Magic
friend
pulled him back in.
My friend. My friend.
It's those Hasbro fangs, man. Once they get in you, make sure they keep bringing you back.
I there's something dumb that I've been working on in Runeterra, so it'll never truly pull me back away again. Runeterra pulled me away from Magic. That's the truth.
The facts. But no, yeah, Pokemon Unite. I've been enjoying hopping on Reddit every once in a while and seeing a Twitch clip of League of Legends well-known Cutie Pie just wrecking kids. The AD maniac himself, and having a good time doing it alongside Dyrus.
Yeah, which is like, Dyrus, oh no, Dyrus, please spare the children.
Spare the children.
There's a YouTube content creator my brother and I follow that already has like 3 videos up of him just bullying poor kids in Pokemon Unite. and like the whole time he's doing it, he's just got like his desk now just lined up with every Gengar plushie he owns.
Yeah. How does it run? Because it's on Switch, right?
Yeah, it's on Switch only right now. And like even when it first dropped, it's very clear that it's made to be a mobile game.
Yeah.
So it plays like a mobile game, but the frame rate, especially like if you're playing docked, it is really good.
Okay.
And the game looks pretty enough. I mean, it's still very cartoony, which makes it pop a little bit more because you don't have to have the graphics like turned all the way up to 11 with such a cartoony look.
Yeah.
But it's very smooth, and there are tons of people playing it right now. I think our longest queue time for a game was 7 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. Like we actually had queue times that were 1 second. Like that's not even a joke. But with that many people playing, we haven't had a single person drop out of a game yet. Like the servers are still up and running pretty well.
Yeah, of course. I can only imagine the amount of money that they put behind that thing to make it run, because it is going to be the biggest seller this year. I mean, we're only halfway through. They're going to make a lot of fucking money off this game.
There's already people that have thrown money at it, and it's not even a week in. Like we got into our 3rd game, and there was like 2 people with skins. and like we're just like, what the hell? Like y'all stole your parents' credit card. Like, don't lie to me. Like, y'all did not pay for this.
Oh, dude, I'll pick your brain more about it, because I have a Switch Lite, so I'll pick your brain more about it after this. But we gotta give the people what they came for. The main topic today: reluctant royalty. We're talking about, is it Viego or Viego?
I say Viego, like, because the Spanish.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, we're gonna go with your interpretation as the Spanish speaker. Viego it is, and it sounds smoother. And you look at his abs; those are Viego abs. Like it's clear.
Yeah, those are abs that came out from like the Barcelona region of Spain. Straight out of a romance novel, and this is what your girl is talking about when she's asking you, when she gets upset with you and asks you to be, can't you be more spontaneous? She's looking at Viego.
This is the fictional character she tells you not to worry about.
No.
So we're gonna hop straight into it. As we mentioned before in a previous episode, Viego has been a part of this random, I say random because there wasn't much lead up to it, It was kind of just like, hey, we have an expansion coming, and also here's a little extra sugar on the side, which was the Sentinel of Light event with the Ruin King, which is precursor to like there's an RPG coming out down the road, and a lot more to follow this story because they're really giving us finally the lore of this chunk of Runeterra history. And obviously we're going to go deeper into that in later episodes. But today we're focusing on Viego because we actually have like a biography released for him and some cards alongside him that give us more.
At last.
At last. So let's start with the spell. Had to do it here. It's pretty straightforward. It's also the spell that Viego turns into if you have multiple of them in your hand. It's Despair. Fitting name, but it's unique. You know, it's a unique spell in how it does killing in this game, like how you remove something with it, but that also makes it damn near unplayable.
Hey, I mean, no, like if you have like especially now with the nice little buffs that Shurima got, that's kind of bringing Lee Sin back into the light. This is perfect for an Eye of the Dragon. You know, get rid of that pesky 1/3 that's creating all those life linkers.
True. Yeah, that's actually a good point.
But if you need to get a Tryndamere off the board, this might not be the spell for you.
And the reason we say that is because it's hella flavorful, and I'll explain a little bit why. I'm not going to spoil the story elements that Hetch will get into later when we get into Viego himself. But Despair says it's a 4-cost slow spell with pick a unit to strike your Nexus, then kill it. So there's a lot of hurdles there. First, it's a 4-cost slow spell. Gives them plenty of space to react to it. And if they react to it with something that's cheaper and they get more value, you're losing the value battle immediately. The next part that makes it tough is that you have to pick a unit to strike. And it's like, okay, well, if they have all value units on and they're all chunky, right? If they're playing a Freljord style deck, which everything has 5 attack, there's not much value there because they don't care if they lose one thing. They're drawing 10 cards because they all have 5/5, right?
Could you imagine playing this against a Reputation deck?
Oh,
like,
my goodness.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Okay, I get a proc on my Reputation and you took 5 to the face. That's what I was trying to do anyways, baby.
But the part that really is the chunk that makes this so attractive to me is the flavor of the card itself, because it does a great sense of representing despair. I immediately thought, when I read this card, of Castlevania, Netflix's Castlevania Season 2, the ending. I'm not going to spoil it specifically, but the gist of that season talks about Dracula, him dealing with depression and taking it out on the world, but in a sense where it's like, I want you to hurt me as much as you can because you can't kill me. And then when you're done making me feel pain, I'm going to kill you. And this is pure Viego energy from how they're presenting the character. And I think that is one of the most flavorful things we've covered in a while.
Yeah, it screams Viego energy. It's very much. I'm glad you made that comparison as far as the Castlevania, because yeah, let's go ahead and just start calling him Alucard. He's Alucard for the rest. Officially on the Casuals of Runeterra podcast. That's his name now.
Yeah, so Despair, great card flavor wise. You probably won't see it much outside of somebody playing it if they have 2 Viegos in their possession at the time. But the follower that comes up on this is very playable and is just as flavorful because it's very important to the story. And they did a great job of translating that. We have Encroaching Mist.
Yes.
So Encroaching Mist is
pick.
What? Go ahead.
This is a fun pick.
Oh, yeah. This one was a no-brainer. Had to do it. It's a 1-cost 1/1. It has Ephemeral, and it has the text, when I'm summoned, grant all allied Viegos and other Encroaching Mist everywhere, +1/+1. Now, when Hetch talks about Viego, you'll understand why this is so good, but it's good on its face value. I mean, it's a card that's an early play. It's a card that allows you to ramp throughout the game so you can keep up on pace. And the Ephemeral effect factors into a lot of cards that came out in Shadow Isles with death effects, right? So that's a plus there.
Yeah, and obviously we're not getting into the Viego's card yet, but that the ephemeral keyword is pretty important as far as to Viego's level up too. And obviously the connection to like Hecarim's level up. He's a dead card, so it doesn't mean too much, but yeah, we can say it. The Encroaching Mist is very, very, very important, not only to the gameplay, but also to the story. Because where does it come from?
Exactly. We have a little quote here, which if you haven't listened to our Nocturne episode, check out that, because this kind of has that same flavor when speaking about the mist. So the quote here says, "Each living creature that beholds the black mist sees something unique in it. Their own fears manifest and realized in vague rolling forms." And that, when we talk about Nocturne and you listen to that episode, the way he presents nightmares to his victims is very similar. It's tailored, and this is rooted in lore in much of horror across our lifetime, where you have a nightmarish creature or something that projects the fears tailored to the person that's being targeted. So that's cool. That's a cool little bit. And then Hedge will talk more about it when we get into Viego here in a little second.
And to me, it is a fun pick because this is like one of the first times we're doing a follower that's not like a playable card. Mm-hmm. Well, if you go back far enough to like our Garen Lux episode, we talk a bit about like the Dauntless Vanguard, but Encroaching Mist is not a card on its own. There are effects like Viego that bring out the Encroaching Mist. Mm-hmm. And then story-wise, it is important because Viego brings out the Encroaching Mist. So how does he bring it out? Let's get to that. Viego is from a long time ago, he is a king of a kingdom far to the east of Runeterra. Before we go deeper than that, if you've listened to our other episodes that revolve around the Ruination 1.0, before we start making the 2.0 joke, as far as the Ruination, the other stories like Callista, Hecarim, and Thresh go hand in hand with this story. And it's because, like Viego, they are all at the center of the Ruination. So we're not going to get into the Ruination too much, but we do get details about the Ruination that we did not have before Viego's champion release and then actually getting his biography. So we will touch it a little bit, but if you've listened to those past episodes, you've got an idea where we're going. So we're going to focus more on Viego before the Ruination. And before that, he is in a kingdom far to the east, long, long, long ago. And before he becomes king, he is a foolish and young man that has absolutely no interest in the throne. And this is kind of stuff that we've heard before, kind of like with Azir's story, where Azir is more just like, it's never going to happen to me. There's 15 other kids in front of me. Yeah. Like, who cares? But with Viego, he was the second born son. So sure, he wasn't interested in it because it wasn't his birthright, but he also just didn't really care. He was more interested in being a spoiled rich kid. There's very much someone that was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. And we don't have the circumstances leading up to it, but we do know that his brother does die before inheriting the throne. So then it falls on Viego's shoulders to become the next ruler of this kingdom. And Viego still doesn't care. He does not apply himself at all. He is more interested in going into the town, partying, drinking, and being a spoiled rich brat.
Exactly.
And the only thing that changes this sense of attitude for him is when he meets a young seamstress by the name of Isolde. I'm going with Isolde. I don't know if that's right.
I've heard it both ways.
Yeah, but we're the casuals of Runeterra, so it's Isolde now. You're welcome. So Isolde is a poor working woman, and Viego is smitten with this woman, head over heels, sweeps her off her feet, marries her, makes Isolde his queen, and he starts to rule the kingdom.
Talk about a glow up.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, we have the glow up, and now it's like, oh, now Viego turns his life around and he becomes a king. No. Well, he becomes a king in the sense that he now takes on his royal duties of handling the finances and the trade routes of the kingdom so that he can give Isolde everything. If Isolde asks for something, she gets it. If Isolde doesn't ask for something, she gets it. He now funnels every part of this kingdom into Isolde and making his queen happy.
For the record, listeners, I know sometimes we talk a lot about politics on this episode, or to some respect. This is bad fiscal policy. This is not the strategy that any country should employ.
What? This is bad? This doesn't work? Oh, no. Yeah, so no. This might be a little thing of, like, embezzling. And to go to the point that this is bad, the people of the kingdom, they agree with Ryan here. This is a bad look. So he ends up isolating himself on his own island where everyone hates him. The kingdom already had enemies before that, much like how politics always works. But now he's also has made an enemy of his entire kingdom and his entire royal court. And
his wife still digs him though.
If you take a picture of every fantasy and sci-fi story and put it on the side of a barn and then took 100 steps away from the barn and threw a big old dart at the barn, you're going to hit a picture that already tells you what's going to happen here. If you make that many enemies, someone's going to try to kill you. All right. This is not rocket science.
Yeah.
So of course, Viego and all of his now many, many enemies are plotting against him. He's no longer safe, but he is an idiot. He is a rich, spoiled kid, and he doesn't know it. So he's not really playing for it. But we do know from stories like Callista and Hecarim that this kingdom did have a very powerful army and very well-trained men and women within that army. So Viego is well taken care of. So when the assassination attempt comes underway, the assassin is definitely blocked away from Viego, and Viego is safe. Isolde, not so much.
Oh, no.
So the assassin that attacks Viego in this instant is using a poisoned blade, and it just grazes Isolde. All right. So it's just a little scratch. And again, like so many different sci-fi and fantasy tropes, it's just like, one scratch of this and you'll be dead before the rooster crows. All right. Isolde's still screwed. All right. Yeah. Isolde immediately goes into a deep slumber. The mages and the physicians of the royal court do their best to stabilize Isolde, but there's nothing they can do. Isolde is going to die. And this is where we get into some nice little Noxus vibes of the ruler kind of losing his mind.
Yep.
So Viego becomes solely focused on curing Isolde's poison. All right. Isolde dies. This isn't a thing of like he's trying to prevent the death. Isolde dies.
Yeah.
And Viego barricades himself in her chambers with her corpse and then ends up taking all of the rest of the money the kingdom has into curing death.
This is not good.
If that's not the ramblings of a madman, I don't know what is. All right. So, and that is where, we really get to pick up on Callista's story, because Callista gets sent off seeking this mythical cure for death. And this is also the point that we know that Hecarim begins using this weakened state of Viego. By weakened state, we just mean the guy's a lunatic. So he probably didn't need much pushing, but Hecarim starts kind of pushing Viego in the direction of like, let's go kill these other nations, because that's gonna, they've got the ticket, they've got what your wife needs to be healed. And for the kingdom, all chaos breaks loose, and this is what leads us into the ruination. They go to the Blessed Isles because Callista is able to find the out that the Blessed Isles has the inner sanctum with these holy waters with healing properties. Go to the Blessed Isles, cause a ruination. All right. So now that we're at the ruination, without those details, the new things that we have, thanks to Viego's story, is what actually happens inside the inner sanctum. With all, especially like with Thresh's story, Thresh has the most details there, and all it was that he had a big old smile on his face while the ruination happened, and he's standing right there.
And he said to himself, "This is how it feels to chew 5 gum."
All right, well, that's it. Ryan's going to finish up this episode because I quit. I quit.
All right, Hedge has it from this point forward. I'm going to go ahead and call this one.
So the new details that we have, other than the 5 gum, it feels like the ruination, is that the inner sanctums is like a pool of water similar to the oasis that is in Shurima that Azir brings back to life after he fully ascends. And Viego takes Isolda's corpse into the pools of the inner sanctum of the Blessed Isles, and she does come back to life. That is the new twist that we have here, is that she does return to life, and she returns to life as a wraith. All right. So things that don't go as planned. Coming back as a wraith, and it is written that is in her confusion and her anger of being ripped away from the realm of the dead, this wraith takes up Viego's sword and stabs him in the heart with it. Now, this is the first point that we actually are told that Viego's sword is a magically enchanted weapon. We don't know the details at this point of what those enchantments are, but the action of a human being killed in this magical pool reacts with the magic of the sword, and that triggers the ruination. So what we know is that it is a strong enough magic to cause literally country-ending devastation and take a whole corner of the Runeterra globe out.
Yeah.
All right. That's what we know about this. And that's why we were highlighting the card Despair, because that is the sword that is used to kill Viego. All right. And the one that kills him is Isolda's Wraith. So just in this little bit of like 10 seconds, just a lot is going down.
Yeah.
And it is the catalyst to the ruination. And that, now we fast forward into Runeterra present times, Viego wakes up. Right. And by Viego waking up, it's his spirit wakes up. And what we know from like Callista and Hecarim and Thresh, none of these wraiths keep too much of their memory. Thresh is the oddity. He remembers everything, but he's a lunatic already, so who cares? Viego also doesn't remember any of these details. He doesn't remember who he was as a person. He only remembers one thing, and the one thing he remembers is that he must see Isolda again.
Yeah.
And the world will be destroyed, and all will die before him so that he can see Isolda again.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads us into the event that we are playing through in the League of Runeterra right now, or the Legends of Runeterra. So that is the event that the Sentinels of Light is fighting, is the return of Viego. And what is happening is that Viego waking up, and the way that he's able to move away from the Blessed Isles is through the Encroaching Mist. And the Encroaching Mist pours out of his pierced heart. So the sword...
That's pretty metal.
Yeah, the sword is strong enough to destroy an entire country / corner of the globe,
Yeah.
and is strong enough to create a magic that allows the dead to leave their realm and travel into the world of the living. What the heck's going on there?
Yeah, it's
Like, it brings up a lot of questions that is just like, holy cow, this is going to be a really deep and crazy story.
oh yeah, it's one of those things that for all of our, I mean, obviously our listeners are used to fantasy. Blight. Blight is a concept in a lot of different lore, and that's essentially what Encroaching Mist is. But one through line in a lot of lore is that blight takes time to spread, right? Where it's not really usually attached to a person. So the fact that he has moving blight with him makes this very interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you bring up blight, because like that's the way we were understanding it before this, like with Maokai's story.
Yes.
Is it is a blight. And now it's a human with that it's just creating it. Oh God.
And the card does a great job of doing that too. And it's
Okay.
like, oh God, as you're playing against it.
All right, now I talk a lot about being an aggro like card player, like at heart, and it's very true. And it's because when I play control lists, I don't play true control. I build bad control decks because I'm not looking at interactions. I'm looking at value.
Yeah.
Viego is value. Viego is spelled with a V for value. All right. This card is the definition of it. It's why I love this card so much. I'm so excited to just go crazy with this. So Viego is a 5 mana 5/4 with fearsome. Okay, pretty cool. Each round, the first time an ally dies, summon an Encroaching Mist. All right, and as we stated before, Encroaching Mist, it starts off as a 1/1, but when it's summoned, it gives Viego and all Encroaching Mists +1/+1. You can get Viego out to some crazy freaking numbers. Viego can get really up there.
Yeah.
But they need to have that damage boost happening to them because his level up condition is I have seen allies with 20 plus total power die.
Yeah.
And I love that as far as the champion spotlight that they gave for Viego when they were revealed the card to us, they were using despair on their own minions to be like, ha ha, this is how you level them up.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, yeah, could you imagine just chucking like a 10/10 Encroaching Mist at your nexus so that you can level up?
Just to level up Viego. I remember when that came out, I was like, well, this is not what you would do. This is bad. So we mentioned despair earlier. So take all those cons and add this to the list of killing a creature you own.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, because Glimpse Beyond is so last year.
Exactly.
Oh, goodness. All right, so now the Viego level up. And this is... we always harp on how well of a job Riot does with translating the League of Legends game into the card game. Viego's no exception to that because his level up is each round, the first time a unit dies, summon an Encroaching Mist, round start, steal the strongest enemy this round. If it's a champion, kill it instead. That... I every little bit of like either on Twitch or on YouTube clips of watching people pop off with Viego. Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds right. Like, because, Viego is like just doming people and then basically stealing their identity to kill the rest of everyone else.
Yeah.
And I love the way that like they're translating that as far as with Magic the Gathering, you have the act of treason effects where you're just taking a unit for a single round and then you give it back. and Viego's got that on his body, but it's the first time that we're seeing it in League of Legends.
Yeah.
It and this is a very powerful effect only for Shadow Islands because the Shadow Isles has all the ways to sacrifice their stuff.
Exactly.
So all of a sudden, that glimpse beyond's a kill spell.
Yeah, and the part that we, I think the last part we haven't mentioned is just the body of the card. So Encroaching Mist is pumping not only Encroaching Mist, but also Viego himself, since technically Viego is Encroaching Mist. So he starts off as a 5/4. So he's already like for 5, which is chunky. That's a good stat line for what he does. And he's getting bigger throughout the game. And then once he flips, it's pretty much at this point, they're expecting you. This is a win more, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to win at this point or before this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's the definition of value because if he's flipping, he's going to be flipping at like 11-10.
Yeah.
Like he's going to be huge. So it definitely is a win more. And that's why it's, this is a kind of control that I like because it's, I'm going to Value Town and then you're going to kill me because I'm not running interaction.
And we get great quote flavor on here on both sides.
Yeah, so the quotes are going to be ridiculous because Viego's life is absolutely ridiculous. But this is really cool because it is coming from, a lot of like old records because this is a forgotten kingdom. And it's kind of coming back to light. So on the first side, we've got, there is something that deeply unsettles me about the young king, something at his heart, a hunger that cannot be satisfied, a desire that goes unfulfilled. And when we get to his other side, it is from the same record. It is obvious to me in hindsight that it was not Isolda's death that fueled Viego's delusions, nor his need for fulfillment, but simply that something he desperately wanted was denied him. And that is from the record of Nuno Nekritos of Camavor.
Yeah.
This is a lot to take in because it's another named character as far as from this ancient kingdom, but we now have an idea of what this kingdom might be. Like, is Camavor a region that actually exists in Runeterra that like people can still go to? Is Camavor the name of the kingdom that Viego is the king of? Like, this is that is a nice little detail to have that, really kind of makes our brains start going of like, yeah, what is Camavor? And we know from some of the new cards that came out that Camavor pops up more than just this. It pops up in some of the new cards as well. So,
exactly. And this quote here on the card makes it clear the through line of his character, right? Where talking about he finally had something that he wanted, that he desired, because as living as essentially like a trust fund kid with no real goals, just kind of living fluidly, he finally found something to put his time and energy into, and that one thing was taken away from him, which it's a great conclusion he comes to where he's like, this is what I think was the problem. Was essentially having something you've never had and then immediately having it taken away from you. So yeah, this leads us into, usually we do a question and or challenge here. But for this episode, I don't really think that fits. I want to just continue our discussion about how we feel about the stories. Essentially, like, how do you feel this? Because this is the major plot point across the board of Runeterra. How do you feel Riot handled this puzzle piece?
I think I do like that. In my mind, they're taking more of like an anime approach, and what I mean by that isn't necessarily that like they're ripping off a story or anything. I mean that they're a lot of animes, especially like shonens. For me, I'm a huge fan of One Piece, and one of the biggest issues that it's one of the reasons I don't tell people to like get into One Piece is everyone knows the first one, which is there's too much of it. But the other one is that the characters are one dimensional.
Yeah.
And as far as with a lot of the other stories that we've gotten into, especially with a lot of the younger characters, when you're talking about characters like Talia, like Lux. These younger characters, you get to see like their growth, especially the Irelia revamp story too. There's a conflict that's going on, and you can see how that's conflicting who they view themselves as too, and that gives a lot of depth that you can relate to. And I like that Viego's being pinned as the big bad, which of course, yeah, he's the big bad. He's literally a walking blight. And for the first time in a lot of the characters that we've talked about, he's very one-dimensional. He's a spoiled rich kid, finally found something, spoiled rich kid got his toy, and then has got his toy taken away from him, and everyone must pay. That is, for a villain, that is totally fine.
Yeah.
And the depth, instead of being put into Viego, is put into the actual crisis.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot, because it is a thing of like, what in the heck is this Encroaching Mist? And clearly it's bad, like, especially when we're getting cinematics with it's not in Runeterra yet, but we get the cinematic of Vayne like becoming a Sentinel of Light. And it's like, oh, okay. Like back in the day, I would just be like, okay, yeah, that's a way for them to sell a skin.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, sure, that's totally true. And it's not an unjustified conclusion to come to. But the way that they're spelling out the story, yeah, these characters actually need to become Sentinels of Light, because this is going to be too big for just Senna and Lucian to handle.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what they do with that side of the story. And that's why I do find this enjoyable.
Okay. Yeah. So from my perspective, I think you hit a lot of the same points I would have mentioned as well. The one addition to it is, with the one-dimensional aspect that we have with Viego being the big bad, there's also what we know about the Shadow Isles from the other characters. So check out our other episodes for Shadow Isles characters. But a lot of those characters, when they're consumed by the mist or the evils that is the Shadow Isles, post Ruination, they're put on a one-track mindset. Like their goals are one-tracked. But one thing that we do get is a flicker of some of those characters having either a brief deviation from that to their past lives, or having, so Callista is a great example of this, right? Where it's like, okay, you have a brief moment where she remembers who she was, or something happens that takes her back off that one mind track that's associated with the Shadow Isles. So I'm hoping with that piece, we get the one trackness of the big bad as the big thing, but when the Sentinel of Light crew gets involved, or we get more development, that there's some twist there on either maybe Viego did remain or keep some of his what am I trying to say? Some of his
like his memories,
or
personality.
Yeah, he's not completely consumed by it, since it comes from him almost. So that would be cool if that's a little twist of, oh no, this is a choice. Like we thought he lost his mind like everyone else, but he's just chosen this and he had the option. And that would be cool, right? So yeah, I like what they did here. I do get that anime feel, as you mentioned. Yeah. But I think there's always room for them to keep playing with it. So thumbs up on this attempt.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it was a cool little... It was a cool way as far as putting in this event, and of course it's cool because we weren't really expecting it, like we mentioned at the start, and to get an event that came out of nowhere, that also brought out new cards.
Yeah,
who's gonna complain about that?
Nah,
not me.
And with that, as always, thank you for listening, and we will be back soon with the next episode.
Take care, everybody.